Hi everyone, welcome to Vantage Live Analysis session. So for today, we will be doing a review of the setups that were covered on Wednesday. At the same time, we will be also going through a few setups that we're looking at. And if you guys have any questions with regards to the chart request, right? So if there are any charts that you want us to take a look at, do put them under the questions chat. So I'll wait for about 1 to 2 more minutes for more people to stream in before we get the session started. And for those of you guys who are here with us right now, right, if you have any chart requests that you want us to take a look at, do put them under the questions chat. Okay, let's start. Right, so for those of you guys who just joined us, a warm welcome. Right, so just a quick introduction of myself. I'm Lee Sing. I provide FX advisory to institutional clients, and I'm also part of the team that's recognized as the Technical Analyst Awards as finalists for the best FX research. So if you are watching a recording of this and you have any questions, either on the analysis done on Wednesdays, Thursdays, or Fridays, right, do feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. If you're with us live right now, please put your questions under the questions chat. So just a quick disclaimer before we get the session started. The information presented here is for educational purposes only and is not to be treated as investment advice. At the same time, if you guys have any questions, I do have the questions chat open as well, right? So do put your questions there. And if there are any chat requests, we can take a look at the charts together. Okay, so let's start, right? So this is the agenda that we will be covering for today. We will first start off with the key economic events. And then for this, we will hop onto the economic calendar. So for economic calendar, we can use either Vantage economic calendar or Forex Factory, right? So those are the two that I use commonly. And then moving on, we will also be having our trade setups and review. So for the trade setups, we are looking mainly on Eurodollar, the analysis done on Wednesday. And then for the trade review, we're looking at Eurodollar. And then for the trade setups itself, we are looking at Aussie dollar. We will also be moving on to the chart requests as well as the Q&A session towards the end of the session. So if you guys have any specific requests, to put them under the questions chat. Okay, so before we hop on to the trade review, as usual, right, let's go through the economic calendar first. So for economic calendar, you can go to Forex Factory. So either Forex Factory in this case, right, you can see that this example itself, it can be categorized based on the different currencies. So the impact of the currencies as well as the impact. So the ones with red would be the ones with higher impact, and the ones with orange would be the ones with the medium impact. So coming up here mainly for today, we have ECB President Lagarde's speech, as well as CAD and US data. So this is on the economic calendar. For those of you guys who would like to use the economic calendar on Vantage, right? So for this, you can also go to vantagemarkets.com. So let me just open that, right? Just go to vantagemarkets.com. Under Education and Tools, Economic Calendar. You can see that this would be the economic calendar on Vantage website. It's the same thing, right? In this case, we also have other currencies that are in other currencies here, right? So apart from just the G7, so you can see the different impact and the different data releases on the different currencies. Okay, so let's take a look at euro dollar for a start, and then after euro dollar, we'll take a look at Aussie dollar. So let's hop on to our charts. So on our charts itself, right, let me just bring up the charts. Okay, so on euro dollar, you can see that on the higher time frame. So back on Wednesday, the move on euro dollar was here, right? So we're somewhere here in time. So we called for a bullish move here with these 3 levels as our target entry, as well as loss, right? Stop loss. So in this case, you can see that this region itself on euro dollar, this is the area on the higher time frame. You can see this support and resistance area here, and currently prices are testing this region. If you go to the 4 hours time frame, you can see that this was the first support zone that we've highlighted earlier, and on Wednesday, right? So this is the region. If you do a retracement of the move, you can see that there's a 50% retracement line up here as well. So this area, this move here. So having taken this move from low to high, you can see that this 50% lines up in this region. So recall on the 15 minutes, we said to wait for a clear change in structure. So on euro dollar, price came in once. If you trace out the market structure, you can see that price came in over here. It came in once, right? So you have your lower lows and lower highs being formed. And then you have this equal lows, right? So equal lows doesn't tell us anything. So ideally what we want to wait for, it's a change in structure, because what this tells us is that this high that broke the previous structure, it's the area that we want to watch for that break of the high. So you can see that following this, price came in, tapped into the support area. We see a push up, price pushed right into the resistance area that we have over here before it goes to the downside. So this is on euro dollar. It broke this ascending trend line as well, as you can see, right, on the higher time frame. So this is the area. So right now, currently prices are testing the next region that we have, which is this area over here. You can see that this area lines up with the 78.6 retracement. So this is the move up and the pullback. So the retracement level, it's taken from this low and this high. So this is the 78.6 retracement. So currently prices, if you have your entry over here, prices are in the negative position, this area, right? But as long as price holds above this, I think there's chance for more upside. If not, then we will want to get out of the position. So this is on euro dollar, right? Let's take a look at the other setup. So for those of you guys who have any chart requests, right? So if you have any requests that you want us to take a look at, do put them under the questions chat. Okay, so the next setup that we have would be on Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, it's on an interesting level, right? Let me just bring out Aussie dollar, and I'll go through a little bit more on supply demand zones as well. And then we'll take a look at dollar index. Actually, for start, maybe we should just take a look at dollar index first, just to see what are the key levels that prices are currently testing. So you can see on dollar index on the higher time frame. So price tested the resistance area over here once, right? So this is following FOMC's release, where Fed delivered a 75 basis point hike, and that was more bullish. It pushed the dollar higher. But you can see in this region here, right? So this is the area. So price came in, tested the support region over here, and we saw that strong push up into the resistance area we've highlighted earlier. So on this resistance area, you can see that price reacted with this move here. And then currently it is testing this region. So it broke the region as resistance, and prices are holding above this area. So ignoring this, the break of this trend line, you can see that if you were to extend it across, right, this trend line itself, there's the clear break and retest. And more importantly, on this region, you can see that prices are currently testing this trend line as a support and resistance area. So this is just something to keep in mind, right? But as we have noted, trend lines can be subjective. So what we want to highlight in this region itself is just looking at supply demand areas, just to see how prices interact. So this is one thing to note on dollar index, but what's more important is this area, right? So having identified this, the breakout and retest of a trend line, you can see this region here. So let me just remove all of these areas, because this retracement levels are no longer valid, right? So price broke it. So let's do a fresh analysis. So in this case, you can see that prices are still holding above the higher time frame support, which is really the daily support region that we have over here. you have this higher lows and higher highs as well. If you were to paint this move, you can see this higher lows and higher highs being formed. And currently prices are within the leg, right? Within this leg of the support region. It's also holding above the higher time frames channel. I believe there's a ascending channel of some sort. So let's see. Okay, not so much of a channel, but rather just an ascending trend line. So this area you can see on dollar index. Okay, so this is on the higher picture on the daily time frame, still sitting on the support region. If you go to the 4 hours time frame, just taking a look at where prices are currently, you can see that this area itself, right? So if I were to focus on this region, the most immediate resistance level we have is here. You can see this region. Again, it's more of a region instead of a specific area. This move over here, right? You can take the wick of this whole candle. So essentially the high, if you take a look at it in line chart, you can see this highs as well, which price came and tests multiple times here. You can see how prices interact with this region. So right now, this is the immediate resistance level that we have. So this is one. So same thing, right? If prices push into this region, what we want to wait for, because coming into this area itself, you can see not so much on the 4 hours, but if you take a look at it on the smaller time frame, right, especially the 1 hour time frame, you can see this region. Prices are still forming a higher lows and higher highs, right? So if I were to trace out the move again, you can see pretty much the same thing. Higher lows and higher highs being formed. So currently we are just within the pullback of the leg, and this serves as the first support region. So if you take a look at dollar index on the smaller picture, right, this is the most immediate level in terms of support, right? So as long as price holds above this region, we could see a deeper pullback into the leg. So same thing, right, with regards to whether there are any retracement levels here, we can do a retracement of this low to high. So Fibonacci retracement of the move from low to high. Same thing, right? Check your key levels. So you can see that the 23.6% is lying just slightly above the zone. So there isn't any retracement that lines up with this area. Another retracement that you can do, it's actually this move, right? So this is the most immediate move before that pullback. So what you can do with this, it's again, identify the lowest point and the highest point and do a retracement of this. So Fibonacci retracement from low to high, and then open up the key levels, you can see same thing, right? We have the 78.6 retracement here that lines up with this region. So this is the most immediate region, right? I think as long as price holds above this area, we could see more upside. So for price to push deeper into this region here. Okay, so once price breaks below this area, then this is a sign that we could be seeing a change, right? So ideally what we want to see is a clear break of this low. So you can see that this is basically the low that pushed prices higher. So we want to wait for a clear break of the support region for more downside confirmation. So this is the outlook on dollar index, right? So you can see that we're still currently within this leg, a clear break of this area. If I extend this across, this is also the previous support and resistance area. So we want to wait for a clear break and a retest of this region. So this is on dollar index outlook, right? We have, so we have dollar index, we have DAX, as well as US 100 by further. Okay, so let's take a look at that, right? So this is my view on dollar index. On the higher time frame first, you can see that it is still forming your bullish market structure. Coming into this region, prices are moving sideways, but it's still moving, it's still hovering above this demand area. You can see over here, the retracement and extension levels done for these levels are still intact, right? So it's still valid. So this is the first region. It's also holding above some sort of ascending trend line, right, ideally. But again, trend lines are subjective. So in this case, right, ignoring the trend lines, you can see that if you go to the 4 hours time frame, in terms of the structure here, right, we have this push down, prices still within this area. But what you can also see is that within this move itself, right, price broke the previous low. So on this pullback of the zone, we've identified the resistance. This is the resistance region. You see how price tested this region twice here, right? And then if you take a look at it in line chart, you can see pretty much the same things. This resistance area here. We've identified a small term or immediate support level. If you go to the 1 hour time frame or even the 4 hours, you can see pretty much the same, right? Stretch the region across. You can see how price interacted with the region as a support and then again as a resistance over here. So this is the area that I'm waiting for. And also on the 1 hour time frame, right, we did a retracement of this move. This is the most immediate move, taking this low and this high as the retracement. And you can see the 78.6 retracement ending up here as well. There's one more thing we can check, and their Fibonacci extensions, right? So in this case, what we can do with this extension, even though it's not the most ideal, we can check this immediate push down. You can see this zigzag pattern that we have here. So on this zigzag pattern, what we want to do is to take these 3 turning points and project the low. So once you have taken this, right, so Fibonacci extension 0.1, 0.2, and 0.3, you open up the key levels and you can see the 127 extension, which is essentially the one in blue, this area, right? So this 127 lines up here as well. So this is one region I'll keep a lookout for. On the break of this level, I think we could see more downside. And then the next target that we have would be the lows here. You can see this low. Again, this is the last low that we have. So looking at how price interact, you saw that strong push down, a rejection or a sweep of this previous low here before it continues to the upside. So this is the next level that we want to watch. Okay, so we need to wait for a clear break of this region first before a further push down. So I would consider all these levels, right? These are the levels that I will watch as key levels. So that's my view on dollar index. We need to wait for a clear break of this level first, right? So this region stands at around the 112.20 level. And the high, it's at around 113.50. So these are the regions to watch. Okay, so let's take a look at DEX as well. So DEX. Okay, so DEX is still testing the region. So again, right, on the higher time frame first, you can see that these levels are still pretty much the same. We have the weekly zone identified here, right? So this is on the weekly time frame. Sorry, the monthly time frame. You have the resistance level. How we found this resistance level is just based on the interaction with price. You can see how price hovered and tested this level as a resistance. If I were to draw a horizontal line across, you can see this level very clearly. Price came, test this level as a resistance, and then again as a support before it continued to the upside. So that's one region to watch, right? Hence the zone highlighted in gray. And we know that once resistance or once supply fails, it creates demand areas. So you can see that this candle still held within the zone before the failure. So this is the candle that creates our demand. So we highlighted this area. This is the picture on the weekly time or monthly time frame. And currently on the monthly time frame, you can see that prices are testing this zone. So this is the picture on the monthly. If you go to the weekly time frame, you can see that prices are still holding below the descending trend line. You can see for it to be considered a valid descending trend line, we need at least 3 taps. So these are the areas, right? So we have this lower lows and lower highs being formed as well. So let me just remove this descending trend line, and you can see here, right, in terms of market structure, if I were to paint out the lows and highs, you can see that lower lows and lower highs were being formed coming into this support area that we have here. So this is the region. And if you go to the daily time frame, right, pretty much the same idea. So we've highlighted this as the most immediate resistance level. You can see that we're seeing some sort of resistance level being faced over here. So we need to wait for, again, a clear break of this level first before more upside, which is why the colored candle started from this area, right? So we want to wait for a clear break and close above this region before more upside here. We highlighted this area. The reason for this is because if you just take a look at this level itself, right, you can see that price tested this region. If I were to draw a horizontal line across, so maybe let me just lighten the color of this so that we're able to see the rest of the candles, right, price action much clearer. So in this case, you can see that if I were to lighten this, right, possibly to this color, you can see what we have here, right? Essentially, it's that price came in to test this region as a support, and then it failed, and then held as a resistance twice. So you can do this in line chart as well. If you put it in a line chart, you can see that if I were to draw a horizontal line across, it divides this chart very neatly across. So this is one area to watch for in terms of the resistance area. And if you do a retracement of this move, right, it's the same thing. Fibonacci retracement of this move. This is the push and the pullback. So we took the retracement starting from the high and ending at the low. And this retracement would give us the 78.6 retracement that you see over here. So this is aligned with the resistance area. We also did a Fibonacci extension. So Fibonacci extensions are zigzag patterns. So recall over here, right, we took these 3 turning points as the Fibonacci extension, and we also projected the extension level at 100%, which is this level. So this is the one in purple. So you can see that prices are still facing some sort of resistance. We saw the reaction of this once already, right? So you saw how price tested this region and rejected this level once over here. So this is one area, right? So the stance is still the same unless price breaks and close above this blue zone that we have highlighted on the daily time frame, this region over here, right? Where I would still be more bearish on this move. So this is currently the level. You can see that it's also holding below descending trend line. But again, trend lines are subjective, right? So I would consider not just the descending trend line, but just looking at market structure in general, you can see that it's still forming lower lows and lower highs. So this is one area. Again, you can also narrow this region itself, right? You can narrow it down to this area here. So essentially, you can see that in terms of demand, this is really the candle that's still held within the area. And then it failed completely. So this is the resistance area. Once we see a push above this area, I think we could see more upside. So this is the first area that prices are currently testing. If you go to the 4 hours time frame, you can see on the 4 hours time frame itself, right? Currently what we have over here, again, if you just look at the structure of the market, you can see higher lows and higher highs being formed, right? So if I were to paint out this move, you can see very clearly. Sorry for this, right? So this move here. So essentially, coming into this region, right, you can see that we want to wait for a clear change in structure. So on the 4 hours time frame, prices are currently testing the area here. Okay, so on the 4 hours time frame, what are the support levels that we can look at, right? We highlighted on the daily, these levels. So if you take a look at this, you can see that again, if I were to stretch it across, this is a clear support turn resistance level before it continued to the upside. So the levels are pretty much the same, right? Further, in this case, this would still be the resistance level. Once price push above this region, we could see more upside to this area over here. This is still the higher time frames resistance you can see over here, because if you're to trace out the market structure, this is the last high. So until there's a clear break and retest of this high, right now prices are still in a bearish market structure, right? So this is on DAX. Okay, so I have a request from Trong as well, right? So do you mind giving a take on how similar movement of US spot oil and UK Brent oil? And if possible, can you have a look at Brent oil? Sure. Okay, let's take a look at that later as well. Okay, so we did on DAX 30 on dollar index, right? And let's take a look at US 100. So let's see US 100. Okay, so same levels here, US 100, you can see that this resistance level. So I think back on Wednesday, right, we did this as well. So the levels are still intact, as you can see here. So prices on the higher time frame first, it's sitting on the weekly. It's sitting on the weekly demand region. You can see how price hesitated over here before it pushed much higher. So this is the support area. If you take a look at it in line chart, you see the same thing as well. Price hesitated, pushed higher, tested as a support, and then continued on the upside. So this is the demand region on the weekly time frame, the daily time frame. And then we highlighted on the daily time frame here, this as the last resistance area. So this is our upside confirmation. We need a break above this region and a close before we see further upside, and using this as the next target. So you can see that price failed to break above this region, right? It's still currently holding below the resistance area over here. We highlighted this resistance, this area that we have in the gray zone. And again, right, we did a retracement of this move from high to low. And that's how we found the 38.2 retracement. So you can see price came in, tested this region, and it just continued much lower. Currently sitting on this area again, right? So if you take a look at it on the daily, the 4 hours, you can see that this is basically the push down. Prices are currently hovering or trading within this range, this resistance support level over here. Okay, so this is the picture on the daily time frame. The stance is still the same, right? So essentially prices are sitting on the weekly area, but in order for us to see more upside, what we want to see is a clear break of this high, because you can see that this high has been respected twice, and also even prior to this reversal, right? We saw the pullback over here. We also identified that this was the last region where price came in to test it as both a support and resistance. So this is the area, right? If we do see more upside, this would be the next target. Same thing, right? Using the retracement level that we took from the high to low over here, you can see that this level lines up with the 78.6 retracement. That's one. And also the other thing that we have is that if we stretch this region across, you can see how price interacted with the region as both a support and resistance. You see the same thing on the daily time frame as well. So let me just remove all these markings and you can take a look at the daily just to look at how the line chart interacts with one another. Okay, so that's my view on US 100, right? So this is still the same, right? The levels did not change here. It's still pretty much the same thing. Okay, so you can see even on the 4 hours itself, right? This whole leg that push up and the pullback within this zone, right? You can see that this creates this area here, right? This pullback into this zone, you can see lower lows and lower highs being formed. So I think the most immediate level, if we do have any immediate level, would be this resistance zone, right? So this is the on a smaller picture. So this would be the resistance zone, as you can see, right? So if we do see a pullback and then a deeper move down, right? This is one resistance region to watch out for. But this is on a 4 hours time frame, right? So you don't see such a big resistance level as you see on the daily, right? You can see the daily picture, the levels are very clear. Okay, so I would say that on the smaller time frame, if we were to narrow down the levels that we want to watch, this would be the first resistance region for me, this area here. So I probably want to label this, I'll label this as the H4, right? And then if we do see any pullback, this is the first resistance region to watch. Okay, so if you have to do a retracement of this, you can see this is the push, right? If prices continue forming lower lows, and in this case, you will have to adjust the retracement. But if not, you can just take a retracement of the move from high to low over here. You can see that this 78.6 retracement lines up with the region that we found. So this is the area, right? So this is the immediate resistance level. But if on the daily, right, I want to wait for a clear break and close above this region to signal more upside. So this is the view on US 100, right? So pretty much the same thing still. Okay, so I hope that answers your question further. Now let's take a look at US spot oil and UK Brent oil. Okay, so if you guys have other questions, right, do put them under the questions chat. Okay, so for UK spot oil and Brent oil, that's what we can do. US spot oil. You're very welcome for that. Okay, so I hope that helps. Now let's take a look at UK spot oil and UK Brent oil. So okay, I'll just use the TVC chart. So we can overlay the chart, right? So this is the US oil. And then for the UK oil, let me see how, there we go. Okay, so what I did with this is that I overlay the movements, right? So essentially you can see here, the one in orange would represent the UK oil, and the candlesticks, candlestick patterns themselves would represent the US oil. So in this example, you can see that they're pretty much the same, right, in terms of the movement. So US oil prices in general, they're impacted by a few factors, right? One of it would be, of course, the OPEC supply output. So if OPEC decides to cut their production, then what happens is that it results in tighter supply, right? So when supplies are tight and there is an energy crisis, right? There's more demand for this commodities. What happens is that it pushes prices higher. So that's one of the factors that drive oil price movements, right? So that's one. So another thing that you can keep a lookout for would be, of course, the economic data that will be on US oil inventories. So if you take a look at the economic data on Forex Factory, right, you can see that there would be US oil inventories data released. So generally, if it signals an increase in output, this could also push prices lower, right? So output on production cuts, these are one of the factors that affect oil prices. The other factor that affect oil price would be, of course, the strength of the dollar. So strength of the dollar, right? So when dollar is extremely strong, what happens is that it makes it more expensive to buy oil prices in foreign currencies. So when dollar is strong, it tends to push prices lower as well. And then, of course, among other factors would be the geopolitical risk that we're seeing, right? So if there is a ban on Russian oil, right, or if there are any other factors that basically threaten the supply of the of the oil in general, then that will push prices higher. So these are the few factors that we can consider, right? Looking at just more of the fundamentals. If you take a look at technicals, I've overlaid the chart on US oil, UK oil. You can see that they pretty much move in the same direction. And if we take a look at US oil, right? So let's take a look, sorry, UK oil. So let's take a look at the levels on UK oil. Right, so on Brent oil, right, let me just remove the other one. Okay, so this is on UK oil right now. Same thing, right? We want to highlight the levels. So on the higher time frame first, just to understand the levels. So if you take a look at it on the monthly time frame, you can see that oil prices currently, it's sitting on a key support region. How so? You can see this area over here. That price came in to test as both a resistance as support, right? So this area, you can see how price interact again, right? Price pushed up, tested this region, tested again as a resistance, continued higher, and right now it is testing within this area. So this demand region. So this is on a monthly time frame. If you take a look at it in line chart as well, you can see that I can essentially draw a horizontal line across that divides this chart very neatly. So this is on the monthly time frame. What this means is that the movement in each candle represents the open, high, low, close prices in a month. So you can see that on the higher time frame, you tend to see the directions, the moves, the levels clearer, right? It's less choppy as compared to your smaller time frames. Like your 1 hour, 15 minutes, right? You see a lot more noise. So in this example, you can see that there is this support area on oil. This is on a monthly picture. What we can do next, again, we identify the move. You can see the strong push up and the pullback. So what I'm going to do is to take a retracement of this move using the low as the starting point and high as the ending point. So what we're trying to do over here is to see if there are any retracement levels that line up with this region that we found. This is one area to take, right? The other one that you can take is actually this area. You can see the strong push up and the pullback. So low to high. So these are the two areas to take, right? So let's take a look at the monthly time frame. Retracement of the move from low to high. Open up the key levels. So I'll just load this levels here. You can see that the 50%, this area, right, taking this whole move using these two reference points, the 50% level lines up with the blue zone that we've identified, the support area. Let's take a look at the weekly time frame. So on the weekly, I want to identify the last move and that pullback. You can see that this is the last move from low to high. So same thing, Fibonacci retracement of the move from low to high here. Open up the key levels and you can see the 78.6 retracement. I'll put this in a different color so that we can differentiate them. But essentially the one in purple, this area here, you can see the 78.6 retracement is within the zone as well. So all on the higher time frame, if you take a look at it on the monthly, on the weekly, it's currently testing a support region right now, right? A support level. You have some sort of ascending trend line being respected as well. Okay, so this is the outlook on oil on the higher time frame. If you take a look at it on the daily, you can see that on the daily picture, currently what we have, right? Again, if you to just trace out the movements here, coming into this area, you have again lower lows and lower highs being formed. So this area, right? If I were to trace out this move, you can see here. You can see lower lows and lower highs being formed in terms of the daily structure. There is then a clear break of the structure that we are seeing over here and a retest of this level. So you can see based on the fractal nature of markets, right? So based on what we've covered yesterday, on the fractal nature of the market. So for those of you guys who attended yesterday's session, we essentially covered how different patterns occur on different time frames. So whatever you observe on the smaller time frames can be seen on the higher time frames as well. And this is exactly what we mean here. So you can see that on that pullback of the leg, right? So on the higher time frame, if you go to the weekly, this is just a pullback. But within this pullback itself, you can see that even on the daily picture, you can see clear market structure being formed, right, in terms of the highs and lows. So if you're to mark out the highs and lows, you can see this region itself, right? You can mark it down in candlestick patterns. You can mark it in line chart. So what we want to do is basically mark out the significant highs and lows. So you can see this highs. So essentially, prices forming your higher lows and higher highs coming into this area. Right? And then what you have after this is a clear break of the high over here. You can see price broke above it. And right now it's retesting this area. So this is the picture on the daily time frame. So you can see that this is the last high, price tested and broke above this region. And if you zoom into this area itself, right? So let me just remove all these markings. because this is still far away. Okay, so if you zoom into this region itself, what you can see is also clear support and resistance areas being respected. You can see this region, again, price testing as a resistance and then as a support. So let me just put this in a different color. This is probably in gray because this is on the higher time frame. Right, so I'll put this in gray. But if you take a look at this region, again, you can see the same thing, resistance turn support level. Price pushed up, tested as a resistance, continued on the upside, retested this region as a support, and right now it's just pushing higher. If you take a look at it in line chart, it's the same idea, right? So you can see how price just divides this level neatly across, and currently it's testing this as a support before it continues higher. So for me, my view on oil on the higher time frame, on the monthly sitting on support, weekly is the same region, right? This gray zone. On the daily time frame, we're seeing support regions being respected and prices are forming your higher lows and higher highs. It broke above the last high that we have over here as well. If you take a look at the retracement level, this is the retracement, the last move, and the pullback. So low to high, this is the retracement region. If you take a retracement of this move from low to high, open up the key levels, you can see the 61.8 retracement being respected here. Another thing that we can check would be our Fibonacci extension. So they're basically zigzag patterns. So in this case, this is your zigzag pattern. You can take these 3 turning points here and essentially project the extension level. So when we do that, you can see that the Fibonacci extension 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, right? So same level that we use. You can see this area. So I essentially take all this. These are the common retracement levels that I use. So in this case, the 78.6 retracement, this is actually the one in blue. You can see that it lines up exactly with this area. So you can see that actually 2 levels lined up here. One is the retracement level, one is the extension level. So price came in, tapped into this region, right? And then it respected this area and continued higher. So for me, oil on this daily outlook is still bullish. In terms of the next resistance area that we have, it's really this region here. You can see how price interacted with this area, right? So this would stand at around $100. So 100 per barrel. So in this case, you can see this area, right? So this is the next resistance area. You can see how price came to test this region, push lower. So for me right now, this would be the next resistance to watch, right? As long as price holds above this, I think we could see some more upside on oil prices. So this would be the region. But of course, this will also be affected by fundamentals, right? So do keep a lookout for any news, right? So especially if there are factors involving geopolitical risk, China as well, because China is a huge importer of oil, right? So in this case, if the outlook on China is weaker, then it could impact oil prices as well. And then, of course, the US, the dollar index strength, because dollar index, if dollar index strengthen, that increases the cost of buying oil in foreign currencies and as well as OPEC decisions. Okay, so any OPEC output decisions will affect oil prices as well. Okay, so I hope that answers your question, Chong. Okay, so with that, I believe we have come to the end of the session, right? So we covered on Euro dollar, Aussie dollar, as well as dollar index, DAX, US 100, US spot oil, UK Brent oil, right? So we compared US spot oil and Brent oil. You can see that pretty much they're positively correlated, which means they move in the same prices, same direction. And then we also covered a slight bit on the fundamentals of oil, right? So that it's the general case, right? And I see that we don't have other questions as well. So this is all that we have for today. So as usual, right, you can sign up for our Vantage webinars on vantagemarkets.com/webinars. You can take a look at the schedule there as well as the topics that we will be covering. If you have any other questions as well, right, feel free to email support@vantagemarkets.com. Okay, so with that, we have come to the end of the session. Thanks everyone for joining us for today. Have a great weekend, right? Trade safe, stay safe, and we will catch you guys again next week.